Hi, my name is Tyler Morrison with the Nujignua'tegeg. I'm here with Stephanie Levesque, the Nutrition Research Coordinator from the FNES, and I'm here with Denny Isaac, the Director of Research at the GMRC here in Listuguj. Stephanie, could you tell me what the study is going to be doing here, the study that's going on for 4 months?
Yes, it's called FNFNES for First Nation Nutrition Study. And there's actually 5 components in that study. The first component is collecting traditional food, which I think is really fun. So what we're going to ask community members that are willing, anybody in the community can participate to this part of the survey. They can bring 1 cup of traditional food. So it could be moose meat, it could be the berries, some fish, anything that they'd like. We will have a list of food that we could collect.
Is it specific towards this area in this region?
Yes, that's correct. Any food that this community would eat that comes traditionally wild food, traditional food.
Okay. What are the other components that you're working on here in Listuguj? The other 4 components out of the 5.
All right. We will have water sampling. There's going to be surface water sampling that will maybe go with Indian River or lakes in the area. And we will test the water for pharmaceutical residue. We will also test the water in the household. And that will be only the community members that agreed to do it. And what we will do, we will test the water that's in the pipe, so directly in the pipe of the house. And also we will flush the water, so let it run 5 minutes, and test the water that comes like in the pipe of the community system. And that will be tested for heavy metal, if there's any residue of heavy metals. Another component is the hair. It's a very non-invasive way to, we just take a little strand of hair, about 20 hair, and we have to cut it and send it to the lab. The machine at the lab can only test for mercury. So nothing else will be tested but mercury. And there's the result will return, the individual result will return to the participant, directly to the participant. All that will be published is more like original results. And the last component, but not the least, is the survey. We will have the CRA, which is the Community Research Assistant. We have Claudette and we have Stacy that will go around in the community and will ask questions to community members. Not all house in the community will be, we won't knock on every household. What we will do, we will take a list of all the house in the community. If we have about 800 house, we will randomly select. It's like an Excel program that switches the address, so we don't know which one's going to come up. And I will do it in front of the CRA to really prove that I'm not picking, nobody's choosing, it's just really randomly selected. We will select 125 house. From those 125, the girls will go knock and ask, are you willing to participate in the study? And I hope people will be interested and very looking forward to know what's going on and what are we eating. So that's the first step into moving on and maybe having new project or knowing what to work on.
For the questionnaire, how long would it take typically for just one household to get it done?
Roughly an hour and a half.
Roughly an hour and a half?
Yeah, it could go to 1 hour, depending if it's the first one or, yep.
Is there ways you can also do with the questionnaire, like getting the drinking water component, getting the samples from the house at the same time, like getting 2 birds with 1 stone, essentially?
With the questionnaire, we will ask you if you're willing for the hair sample, if you're willing for the water. But we will not collect the water the same day because we're only collecting the household water in 20 house in the community. So we're not doing everybody.
Okay. I have to ask Denny, has there been any studies here in Listuguj that are related to the FNFNES study?
Yeah, well, the GMRC itself, we tested we went to the households before. We worked with them to take a chunk of their, steak from their salmon that they harvested, and it was, I believe, in the 2010 season, and it was tested for dioxins, furans, and I believe mercury. And why dioxins, furans? Because it's associated with pulp mills, and we do have a pulp mill out in the river. However, the results, you can eat quite a bit of salmon before any of those effects. You would ever see any effects from those contaminants. And we've also done other studies in other communities because GMRC worked for Pabineau and Ill Bar as well, and we've worked with them in testing their lobster from their food social ceremonial fisheries, and we also worked with Pabineau directly and collecting liver and meat samples from their moose harvest. That was in 2012. But there are some concerns, especially from the Bay of Chaleur. Cadmium is a very prevalent heavy metal, especially in the tamale of lobster. That's the lobster's liver, and it is a concern for any community members who eat a lot of lobster. So we just recommend that the community members avoid, if they got their lobster from the Bay of Chaleur, to not eat the tamale, the green stuff in the lobster.
Is everything else in the lobster fine, or is there like a certain acceptable limit?
We tested a number of contaminants: mercury, lead, zinc, and the main one, the concern that sets the level or how much you can eat, would be cadmium. And cadmium is okay in the meat itself, so you can enjoy some lobster meat, but not the tamale.
Okay, Stephanie. This study has been going on for 10 years. Has there been any concrete data showing any real effects to First Nations communities with these heavy metals, mercury, and like all of these types of toxins?
Well, this study is really more concentrated south of Canada, like south of the 60th parallel. And I find it very pleasant to know as a dietitian that some people will be hesitant to eat traditional food, but once it's been tested, it's proving to be healthier than typically what we can buy in the grocery store. So that's a very positive point about it. And you're right by saying that this is a 10-year study, and Quebec is the last province or the last region.
Is there any reason why Listuguj was chosen for this study?
That was randomly chosen again by a researcher, and it had to do with the size of the community. There's approximately 10 to 12 community in the Quebec area that will do the study this fall.
And just about winter, I'm just going to look back at one of your components, the traditional food sampling. I read in the pamphlet that you have different methods on putting in containers and bringing it back to get it studied in the University of Ottawa. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. What are the different ways that you would have to prepare these foods, have them being able to be ready to ship off down Ontario?
We like to collect the food almost ready to eat. It can be raw, or it can be cooked or in a recipe. But if it's a lobster, for example, the people at the lab don't really know how to cut open and which part of the lobster we eat. So typically we would just bring 1 cup of the lobster meat. That's the way we would prepare it. But if it's a tea, then the tea would be boiled. We just need the liquid, the tea, 1 cup that we could put either in a mason jar, but roughly 1 cup.
Denny, is there any plausible risks right now for any and all age groups with consuming salmon and lobster?
Generally, you want to avoid young children eating, or even pregnant women eating seafood due to the high levels of mercury that are kind of naturally out in seafood products. But based on our results that we've tested, that cadmium is a major concern in lobster tamale, so it's generally recommended that pregnant women don't even eat lobster when they're pregnant due to these contaminants and their associated effects that can happen with the development of a fetus. Also, young children shouldn't eat too much salmon because of the mercury levels, based on our results. But that was in the community of Ill Bar. However, generally, where that source of mercury is coming from, we're not sure. So a general concern is to usually young children, I think is under 26 kilograms, should avoid eating a lot of salmon.
Is there any other fish in the Listuguj River that we should be worried about or be cautious about eating?
Well, generally, fish that if they stay around a certain area or they migrate, like salmon's a migratory fish, wherever they're migrating to or from, what are they exposed to? That could be a concern. However, locally, we have a pulp mill in our river, and one of the species we tested that was a concern was American eel. Eel will stay into a certain habitat for up to 30 years before it decides to migrate out. And based on those results, we found a lot of mercury in eels. However, our sample size was very small, so I don't want to make assumptions based on such a small sample size. But mercury was a concern for eels, and they're very fatty fish, so and that fat usually absorbs a lot of contaminants, and that is a local concern. But however, like I said, the numbers I tested were very small. So
Okay. For some of the wildlife that you'll be doing testing on, would you be relying on donations from hunters, local hunters? Or would you be going up there yourselves with the CRAs?
Oh, we're going to rely on the hunters.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to rely on the hunters, and we're going to try to have moose from different hunters in the community, and they will be compensated for that 1 cup. Everybody that brings a sample will be compensated for their 1 cup.
Oh, speaking of that as well, I was told earlier that there would be a compensation for the questionnaire.
Yes, that's correct. I just learned this morning. Usually it's around $20, but Donna informed me this morning that the community members will be lucky. It will be $50. It's not. It's just a gift to say thank you for your time.
All right.
For
Perfect.
answering the question of the questionnaire.
And when do you see this roughly being finished? Like mid-December, late December?
Yes, the questionnaire should be ongoing very well by Halloween, so by the end of October. And by December, we should be towards the end. That's correct.
Denny, are there any concerns with previous studies?
Generally, there is a hesitation sometimes to invite someone into their home and ask them some questions, and usually they have a concern as to how the information will be used and where it'll go. But generally, if you can guarantee them that that these studies are there to benefit the community, and an example of like this study that's happening, these types of studies are very important for our community members because generally the store-bought foods have a certain set of limits of what kind of contaminants they can have in them before they can be consumed by the average Canadian. However, the average Canadian eats a certain amount of wild foods, whereas First Nations, we consume a lot of wild foods. It's a staple of our diet, and it's important that we know what's in these foods for many health reasons, and that's why these studies are very important and for our communities to be involved in.
And also, so far I've been in the community and I've had a warm welcome, so I'm very pleased to be here. The survey will be done by the community research assistant, so by community members that will go into the household. The results will be shared. The water result, as I said, will go directly to the homeowner. The hair sample will go to the person that accepted to have their hair collected. And then there's going to be a more general way to present the result. This is one that was done in the past, and it's very colorful with picture of our community, or the community, and very easy to read, very comprehensive. This information will then be used by the community members.
Would there be a more comprehensive and specific infographic that would come out to the community for like this? Like you said that this is a really colorful one, but is there a more specific one that comes out? Yes.
There's a thicker report that's going to be done originally, like for the Quebec and then for the community, that the leaders of the community will be able to have and use for further funding, to know exactly what to work on at the wellness center, for example, if there's a high rate of smoking or if we need to work on something else. That's going to be very useful for the community.
You will be here for the next 4 months. Is there anything you would like to say to the community members since you will be around?
Yes, for sure. Anytime if you see me on the street, my name is Stephanie, or if you don't remember my name, just say hey, and stop me, ask a question. Feel free to talk and introduce yourself.
All right, thank you. My name is Tyler Morrison. Once again, Stephanie Levesque and Denny Isaac. Thank you.
Thank you.